camera, and action. Okay. On this episode of Final Nightmares, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so I'll just get angry and walk out. Saying that, you're stubborn, delusional, and incompetent. You deserve to run it the way you want to. Done. Goodbye. And then just on camera say that, repeat the same thing. Yeah, so, right, so. Huh?
I just had a question.
Oh.
In the review session, there was another lecture. You said called Jasper Layer.
Oh, yes, so basically, yeah. So, I did forget about that. I was kind of turning it over my head. So, I'm thinking whether I should include it on the final or not. Part of me wants to include it because, that's, extra, knowledge. But the realistic side of me, says that considering the circumstances, I just don't know, if I do it today, on how much SAP you guys will be able to absorb. So, so how about I leave it up to you? So who votes yes? Those people are here.
Let me read through it first.
What? Informed votes? Come on, what century are you in? You actually want to know what you're voting on? What a nerd. Yeah. Right, yeah, it should be, yeah. Yeah, I should have put it up, but I didn't, yeah. That's because of the decision. So, okay, so who votes to have it on the exam? Okay, so who votes to not have it on the exam? Yeah. Shelley, are you voting? Oh, you're abstaining?
No, I'm indifferent to this decision.
Oh, so apathy, right? Okay. Yeah, so, all right, so I think, the naysayers won. So, yeah, so no less thing on the final exam. And I'll send an email to everybody else, basically telling them that, not happening, so, yeah. So shall we continue with, yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about SQL injections. So the previous discussions was they focused on let me mess with your, backend code. Now, the whole point of SQL injections is for me to mess with your database. So before we talk about SQL injections, let's review, or I guess learn, or learn is kind of learn plus. Yeah. So let's talk about what SQL is and how it works. So most web-based databases nowadays, they make use of the SQL language. SQL language is used to construct and to query the databases. And SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it supports the following operations. So, it has an operation called select, which is used to select data from the database. It has an insert operation, which is used to add data to the database. It has an update, which is used to update existing data in the database. There is a delete, which is used to delete records, and there is drop to delete entire tables of records. It also provides ways to add conditionals to your queries. So for example, I can specify something like, give me all records where this field is equal to that, and that field is equal to that. And this is where conditionals like where, and or come in. Last but not least, there is a dash, which specifies a comment. Seems like, a minor thing at the end, but as in security, this thing will be our demise. So beware of the dash. Okay? In ancient Greek, actually, dash meant death. No, it didn't, but that's what people say nowadays. As Confucius said, beware of dash, right? Right. So now, before we go on, let's review SQL a little bit. Well, or if you don't know it, let's get a general idea of what SQL looks like. So SQL databases are relational. Relational means they're structured using tables, okay? Records are stored in tables. So here is a typical SQL database table. So each row represents a record, and each column represents a particular attribute that different records can have. So for example, here is a website that contains technical news. So, and each record is a news story, which consists of an ID. So each story has an ID. It has a title, for example, databases. It has an author, such as John, and the actual contents of the story. Then there is another record. There is a story on computers by Joe, and there is a story on security by Jay. Okay? So now, so this is what a typical database table looks like. Now, how do I query this table using SQL? Well, here is what a typical SQL query would look like. So it says select star from news where ID is equal to 3. Okay, what the heck is going on here? So let's break it down step by step. Select means I want to query the database. Okay? And then star means what kind of attributes do I want to retrieve from the database? And star means give me all attributes that match the criteria. Turn on virus protection. Virus protection is turned off. What has turned it off so much? What did I do? Did I say something? Okay. So, let me finish explaining this and then, I'll deal with my protection issues. So, select means query this a database. Star means return everything that matches. And from specifies the name of the table which I want to query. So let's say the name of this table is called news. So I'm telling it, query this table. Where ID equals 3, that's a conditional. It tells me return only the records where the ID field matches number 3. So to summarize, please query the table called news, query this table, find me all the records whose ID attribute is set to 3, and return to me all of the fields of that record. So what would this query return? The third record, right? The third record. And what is it going to return? It'll return the ID, right? The title, the author, and the story, right? Make sense? So now, let's try another one. What happens if I modify it like this? So it's going to, Sherman, yep. It's going to return story 2, right? Now, just story 2, right? No other attributes. So what this says is, query the table called news, find me all records where the author attribute is set to Joe, which is only this one. And do I want all of the record attributes? No, I just want the body, right? So it'll return basically story number 2, right? Makes sense, right? Just story number 2. Make sense? All right. So this is how SQL works. So far so good, right? Have you guys done any SQLing before? Okay, so a few of you did. And the rest of you who didn't, does this look familiar enough to you? Does this make sense? Is it clear? Yeah? Is it clear? Right? Good? You sure? Okay. Yeah. SQL is not a hard syntax. In fact, when it comes to databases, in designing databases, implementing in SQL, that's actually the easy part. The hard part is, figuring out the data flow model, like what do you want your database to do, okay? Figuring out the schemas. So, but don't worry, we won't be talking about this in this class because here we're focusing not on making databases, but on breaking them. So this class is about breaking things. Now, yes, you should design your databases to be secure by design, but this is not a web security course. This is a network security course, and web security is just one unit. But eventually, there's going to be a web security course where we'll be talking about that. So, but that's the future. That's not, the present. And if you guys are watching this in the future, where the security course, where the web security course actually exists, then it means that our visions have been realized. Okay. If not, then we're still working on it. Okay. So we never give up, and we never forgive. Right? And we never forget. Right? So now, SQL injections. That's where I'm going to take a SQL query, and I'm going to construct it, and I'm going to use your vulnerable web app in order to force your database to execute my query. So I'll use your web app to force your database to execute my query. And what is my query going to do? Probably nothing that you're going to like. So, and why do they happen? Because people don't check their, inputs, right? People don't sanitize their inputs. They just take whatever the users feed them and swallow it, hook, line, and sinker. So, let's take a look at how SQL injections actually happen. What makes them possible? So let's say that I have a SQL query like this. It says select product data from table where product name equals user input to product name. So what is going on here? So it looks like I have a web app, right? The user is going to enter, the product name in some kind of a field. And that product name is going to be used in this query. What does the SQL query do? It tells me to query the table called table, very creative name, and in that table, find me all records whose product name attribute matches whatever the user has typed in the website, and return to me the product data attribute of the matching records. Makes sense, right? Now, what I'm setting the stage for here is, you see that product name equals user input product name? That's where all the drama is going to happen. Okay? So, let's say that I have a secure login form. How do I know it's secure? Well, it says so. Now, how does this form work? So let's say in the backend, I have a database that will take whatever the user has typed into the login field, and he's going to verify it against the database. And I have a query like this. The query says, select star from users where login equals username and password plus password. Okay, what's going on here? Well, it looks like I got two variables that are provided by the user. One is called username, and the other one is called password. Makes sense, right? Those are the names of the variables that contain the username and password that were provided by the user on the website. Now, so what this is going to do is, it will construct a query called SQL query equals select star from users, where login is equal to single quote, whatever user has typed, close single quote, and then, and password equals open single quote, and whatever the user has provided at the website. So this is, for example, a PHP code that constructs the SQL query that will be executed by the SQL server. Makes sense, right? You may say, okay, so, well, let's see what this can do for us. So on top, I have the original query. And let's say that I input something like this into the username field. How will this be evaluated? Well, so it says select from users where login equals single quote username. So what's going to happen? Well, this is user input, so A, so small quote, A, and then I provide a close quote, or T equals T, colon, slash, slash. By the way, the semicolon is used to separate multiple, SQL statements. So I can issue multiple SQL statements and just separate them by semicolon. What's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is this. It's going to evaluate to this. And maybe, a good way to visualize it is for me to draw it out step by step on the board. So I'm going to clear my cookies right here. Clear history. Okay. In the last hour, right? So. And so let's take a look at the original statement. Okay, and colors are going to help. So, I have SQL query equal to select I have select star from users where login is equal to a single quote, and I have a user name. Just make sure that right. Yep, username. User name plus let's see, double quote, single quote, double quote, single quote, and then and password. Equals to, and I got single quote, double quote, plus password. Single quote, double quote, password, and then let's see, plus double quote, single quote, colon, double quote. So just want to make sure I get this right. Plus, double quote, single quote, and then double quote. So what the user does is he enters a query that looks like this. So it is going to look like this, where is it? Login equals username. So he enters a query like this: a single, and then or t equals t colon dash dash colon dash dash. Let's see how this statement is going to be evaluated. So, well, it will become, it's going to become select star from users where login is equal to open this single quote. Now, so this will contain the username now, right? So, so those double quotes, username, will be replaced with this, with the query. So, dash dash. Now, and what comes next? Well, next comes everything after the username. So, single quote, and password equals, so basically, double quote, password, and yep, so basically everything else. And password equals to just the blank. Okay. Now, what's the problem? What's the problem with here? What happens to everything that comes after dash dash? It comments it out, right? So basically everything else over here is, disabled, right? Not execute. So, what does my query become now? Well, my query says, query table called users. In that table, find me everything that satisfies this condition. Either it's equal to A, or either T is equal to T. So, if this is true or that true, please return to me the matching record. Now, my question is, when will this be true? Always, right? Right? That should make sense, right? Because, or, if one of the statements of or is true, then the whole thing is true, right? So, if this is true or that true, the record matches, right? So, what is this going to do? It'll return to me all records in the table called users, right? Will the password be verified? No, right? Why? Because it has been commented out, right? Do you see how I was able to force this to execute my query? Right? Make sense? Yeah? Let's try another one. What happens if I add something like this? Well, so once again, then this will become, so now instead of using this input, I'll be using another input, which is, what do I do now? So I'm still doing or T equals T, or T equals T in police. Okay, and drop table. Drop table users. Yep. Oh, and of course, must never forget the deadly dash dash. So, what will this make this query become? Well, it'll become select star from users, and I will take a space, where login is equal to, so open single quote, and this part, right, is going to be evaluated into what? Username, right, plus the single quote. So, and now, and what did I type as the username? I typed this, right? So this will become A, right, close, or T is equal to T, colon, drop, table, users, colon, slash, slash, not to be ignored, and then I have everything else. So what comes after it? Well, close quote, right? And then, and password is equal to blank. Because I'm assuming that I did not, input any kind of password because I have no use for it. Okay? So, and guess what this will do when this query executes? It'll delete the table, right? It'll delete the table users. So now your entire database, your entire user table is gone. Now I can do other things too. I can use update in order to change the records into your table and thus deface your website. Make sense? So basically, what I'll do is I will type in an input which would trick your SQL database into executing my query. Makes sense, right? Yep. So, okay. So so once again, I can add some embarrassing products to your website. I can change what the website says. I can deface it, or I can steal stuff from your database. I can gain login without proper authentication. So the possibilities are endless. So now, how do you actually begin to uncover a vulnerability in a database? Well, CSUF has a lot of web applications that make all of those mistakes. So, and you know how I found it? How I found them? I wasn't looking for them. I was just trying to fill out a web form, for something I had to do, and it gives me an error, and it gives me a lot of information. So if I wanted to do a SQL injection, I would know exactly where to start. So, so if you're an attacker, you're faced with a website, and you want to execute a SQL injection. How would you do that? Well, SQL injections happen because people don't properly sanitize their strings. So how about I begin by entering a bunch of inputs into the web forms that would result in an improperly formatted SQL query. Because if I can do that, the server will try to execute it and give me an error, right? And I'm hoping that the admin has been stupid enough to not disable public errors. Well, and here is an example. Let's say that the suspect web form looks something like this. It has a username and a password, and it's passed using a get method. I know, brilliant already. Where user says user equals user and password equals pass. Okay, great. Now, what I can do is I can try and mess with those inputs in order to see if I could get the web app to crash. So what can I do? Well, let's say that I add something like this, in hopes that this would create an invalid query. So for example, so in here, right, what happens if I pass in an input like this? So if my username is equal to, just A, so this will become select star from users where login equals to, and so here I have open quote, and this is where the fun begins. So my input was open quote A. Okay, so in that I have plus and password is going to be equal to, so it has open, and then it has close, and then A. Now, clearly that's not a valid SQL query, right? So the server will try to execute it, and the database will produce an error. And I'm hoping that the user has been dumb enough, well, not the user, the developer has been dumb enough to not disable public errors. And if I get an error which looks like this, it's telling me that the version of the database, Microsoft OLEDB provider, SQL error, and it even gives me the query. Select ID from table users where username is equal this and that. Basically, it's telling me this is not a valid query. Oh, indeed. Now, I know what the query looks like, right? And I know that it's not being properly sanitized, because if it was, then what would happen? This wouldn't have happened, right? So, my next step is to craft my SQL injection. Because at this point, I know two things. The queries are not being sanitized, because if they were, this wouldn't happen. And I know exactly how the query looks like. Make sense? Yeah, are we good? Yeah? Okay. So basically, that's what this looks like. And here is, let's see. And here is one example of a possible exploit of the above query. If I set admin, if I set user equal to admin and then dash dash, and pass equals open quote A, what would the above query become? It would become this. So select from table users where username is equal to admin dash dash, and what happens to everything after dash dash? Becomes a comment, right? So basically, this whole thing, and password equals A, is that going to be executed? No, right? So basically, what is this going to do? It'll return to me all the records from the table where the username is admin, right? So it'll return me all records for the user admin without me supplying the password. Make sense? So those are the SQL injections. Once again, because people did not bother to validate their input. Now, if this works, then, well, I hit a checkbox. Makes sense, right? And yes, SQL injections, they've been around since the old times. Yes, they are plaguing even some of the premier websites like Amazon, but they have been around since the beginning of time. So as soon as basically people started using SQL, here are some historical incidents that kind of made SQL injections famous in the first place. So now, one important thing to know about SQL injections is that it's not a vulnerability in the database application itself, nor is it a vulnerability of the SQL language. It's the vulnerability in the minds of people who write this stuff. The developers who don't sanitize their inputs are to blame. I said it before, I'll say it again. So, in 2006, hackers have broken into Rhode Island government websites and stole credit card information by using SQL injections. And in 2007, Microsoft websites in UK was defaced. He probably used, update records. In 2007, the United Nations website was defaced by the SQL injection attacks. So those are just some of the examples. So how do you make sure that they don't happen? Sanitize your freaking inputs. Always. No exceptions. Okay? There is no excuse to not sanitize them. So, and one of the things you can do is look for SQL statements in your queries. If the login form, if it's a login form, you shouldn't you shouldn't really be using SQL to do that. Your password should not be a SQL statement, and neither should your username or first name be, right? So also, another thing which you can do to limit the possibility of SQL injections is impose limits on your inputs. So if this is a username, if this is a username field, then it doesn't need to be infinite. It doesn't have to be infinite. Restrict your usernames to what, like 16 characters, okay? It'll make it more difficult for somebody to craft a SQL injection query because they just want to have enough characters to craft it. Yep.
Also, would another method be disabling the public error messages?
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt either, right? Don't, when you put your web app into production, disable the public error messages. Okay? Disable the public error messages. I mean, it's fine to tell the user an error has occurred, but don't give him like the whole, server name, the server version, and the query it was trying to execute. I mean, that's like, that's like basically, dancing around, naked with a target sign on yourself, right? That's asking for it, all right? So limit the size of your inputs to make it more difficult for people to construct queries. Make, disable public error messages and sanitize your inputs. Okay, pretty much all backend, development languages have libraries for doing that. Like, you don't have to think about it, just, like in PHP, I believe there is a function called MySQL escape, which will basically, take care of that automatically. You just gotta do it, okay? And people don't, because they think it's too much trouble. Now, yeah, and like Sherman said, modify the error reports. Like, don't give them detailed error reports, okay? There is no reason why an outside user needs to know what kind of query you're trying to execute, okay? You don't just tell them an error has occurred or, could not log you in. Please check your username and password. You don't have to tell them how your system works. Now, before we go on, there is a classic, thing that pretty much, whenever somebody learns about SQL injections, they have to see that. So, and I'll quickly show it to you, just so I can say that I just taught this topic legitimately. And yes, I have connectivity. Let's see. Oh, yes. It's a classic. I'll give you a few months for that. This one is a classic. Yeah, so yeah, but otherwise, generally, there is no reason why, you should allow SQL statements in your first name field. And if somebody does have a name, I don't know, make them choose, something else, like, Bobby Tables. Yeah? Yeah. So, yep. All right. So, who's going to name their kids that now? Just for, yeah. All right. If you have the name, are you going to be bullied a lot in class? I just wondering. No, like imagine that somebody wanting to cyberbully you and then posting on their social network, haha, this guy's name is that, and then the website goes down. Yeah. It's really amazing on what you can get people to do. There was this social engineering thing, I can't believe it worked, but somebody posted, did you know that if you type your Facebook password into one of your Facebook posts, Facebook will automatically protect it by replacing it with, *****. Yeah. It worked. bunch of people started, suddenly a bunch of people just started posting their passwords, And no, they weren't starred. So, yeah. So I can definitely imagine this happening. And I believe, let's see, this concludes our web security.
Are we gonna go out to the Wireshark one?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Yep. So, let's do the Wireshark thing that I couldn't do before because I was disconnected. Don't tell me I didn't install Wireshark. I remember doing it the other day. Or am I delusional? No, why is it like that? Maybe I am delusional. I could. I could use Wireshark. Yeah, they are. All right, I'll just use remote desktop. Yeah, in fact, I think that's exactly what I'll do, assuming everything is still running after the multiple power outages. Oh, it is running. It should, yeah, it should. I did ask Kernan.
There's the power outage, I hang out with them.
Well, everything is supposed to reboot by itself. I have a Raspberry Pi which is connected to UPS that is monitoring my servers, and if it goes down, it sends me, a text. So my text history has been blown up yesterday. It's been just, it was telling me the power was going. I don't know.
The power came back up, I kept getting these pages,
Oh, those systems, yeah. Poor gamers who are like right in the middle of. That's a hit.
Should I stop first?
No, keep going. I'm just trying to sort of, there we go. All right. So, let me start the Wireshark capture. After you see you, I don't have to do it. So, what I can do is, I can probably, can I capture this one? No, it's not. Okay. So what I'll do is, I'll just start with the sudo. That should work. There we go, it's working. There we go. So, so I have Wireshark running, it's capturing packets, and I'm going to open up a browser, and I'm going to go to some HTTPS website, like for example, Fullerton.edu. Actually, I take it back because the website is not secure. It's not HTTPS. But if I go to login, it does take me to a secure website, right? So, and I'm going to stop the capture because it's going wild, and I'm going to look for HTTPS. And it says it's not there, so I'll do TLS. I'm going to look for TLS. There is my TLS. TCP. Oh, I see TLSs. No, you're not sorry.
That was not a change in